Hi, everybody. Happy Father's Day to all of you. I hope that it's a blessed day. We all have dads. Some of us get the privilege of being dads, and some of us had wonderful dads, some didn't. But still, it's a day that we celebrate the fathers, the guys that are doing it right. Just a tip of the hat to all of you, to you guys who are raising uh, children or have raised children that didn't have your blood, but they had your heart. To those guys that just were there, the guys that did what they had to do, we appreciate all of you so much. And I just want to give a word of encouragement. Maybe you haven't been a great dad, but you can change today and make it a priority in your life. We live in a society that's trying to downgrade so much both the presence of fathers and the importance of fathers. Be present and choose to be important. Now, when your kids get older, you can't make them. But man, if you've got an opportunity and they're young, make the most of it. And if they're older, make the most as well. We're going to get into some really great emails from you all today. Raider stuff, some really good stuff. I think you're going to enjoy it. So let's dig right in. First one comes us from T, the initial T, last name Beck. Dear Mr. Carpenter, I became a Raider fan because of a gentleman I work with who was a diehard Raider fan. I have great respect for him, his love and knowledge of the Raiders. He's been a Raider fan forever. And he told me that when all is said and done, Antonio Pierce will be the worst head coaching hire in Raiders history. That he's a lot of rah-rah, not bright, doesn't really understand all of football. That's why he had to put so many older coaches around him. What say you? That's from T-Bet. Well, everybody's entitled to everyone's opinion, and I respect that. But that also means I'm entitled to mine. And my answer to you, T-Beck, is that this person is allowed to feel any way they want. But to say that he's not that smart, to say that he's only rah-rah, doesn't know the game of football, I think there is a village that has put his picture on a milk carton looking for their idiot. Now, let's go to Colby V in Portland, Oregon. Hello, Hondo. Question for you. I want to go back and just say something here to T-Beck. I have no idea how good Antonio Pierce is going to be. I just know the ignorance of your friend's comments. That's what I was addressing. Colby V in Portland, Oregon. Hello, Hondo. Question for you. What downside do you think there is for the Raiders of the NFL to run a promotion or to fundraise for a chance at spending draft day in the war room of the team? Obviously, an NDA would be needed and other legal signatures. With the unbelievable interest in the draft these days compared to what I started watching in the late 80s, this would seem like an awesome thing for fans. Thank you for your time, Colby V in Portland, Oregon. I think, Colby, it sounds on paper to be a great idea, and it is a horrible idea. I know what goes on in war rooms. They're not going to let anybody in there. There is a lot of things. First of all, so let's say Team A calls the Raiders and says, man, we would really like to trade for Trayvon Merrick. And the Raiders are like, no, we're not trading Trayvon Merrick. Yeah, but we'll give you this draft pick. Well, no. Or what if the Raiders said, hey, we'll trade you Trayvon Merrick, which they're not looking to trade him. There's just too much inside information, and teams like fans to feel appreciated, but they don't want to take them too far into the process. They look at each other. They're 32 teams, they're 32 franchises, but they have to protect one another. I know enough as a journalist that I'm not allowed to report. To put a fan in there, it just it sounds awesome. I don't know that it's doable. Maybe if you said that there were going to be times you could put the fan in the other room, but sometimes when a team is on a short clock and they make a quick call and you got them on speaker, you got them on the phone and you're dickering and dealing, you can't really move people in and out. No, I would just say I think that would be too far. Be great for me as a journalist. I don't think it'd be good for the teams of the league. Next, Uncle Hondo, with Tyree healthy and Koonce coming off a great second half of the season, would it be best for the Raiders to see how Tyree plays this year before committing to Koonce for an extension? Due to the future salary cap commitment the Raiders already have. Thank you. And this is from Zach Gebhardt in Sparks, Nevada. First of all, thanks, Zach. Never heard of Sparks, but thanks for getting a hold of me and sending that in. No, if Koonce has a big year, you want to re-sign him. You want to re-sign all your guys who earn it. Okay, so let's assume he has another really good year like he had last year in the last 8 games. He's not going to get max money. He's going to get good money, but you want to re-sign your guys. That takes care of your franchise. It keeps loyalty with your thing. No. And then you hope that in 2 years you're signing Tyree to another deal. By then you won't have Jink. Probably not. I'm thinking because of his age. Maybe not even Adam Butler, which you might. But then you're going to hope some of the younger guys come along. Maybe a Nesta. Whatever. Byron Young, for sure, Byron. So no, I don't think it's a let's wait on Koonce. I think you wait on Koonce because you only have 8 games. You wait on Koonce to the end of this year. Then you look to do something. This one. Hello, Hondo. My question, since minicamp has concluded without either QB separating themselves, can QBs practice before teams meet in person? Can they practice timing and parts of the playbook to get better during end of June and early July? Thanks, Mike in Murrieta. Absolutely, they can. And I've talked about this before. They can go get other players to join them. But I take a little bit of an umbrage with your comment here, Mike. And it's not umbrage as if you did anything wrong, but a corrective point. Since minicamp has come and gone without either quarterback separating themselves, how could they? There's no contact, there's no pads, there's no running game. That was never an expectation within the Raiders. So I don't know if you had that fueled to you by media or whatever, but there was zero expectation of you could not have evaluated either guy this time. Remember, preseason's for installation, not evaluation. Just want to make that clear. But yes, they can absolutely go work with anybody they want and anybody who will. And I'm sure some of them will. I'm sure both of them will. I don't know that they all will between now and 4th of July, but they certainly might. I know a lot of the guys planned on still taking care of their body with nutrition and working out, but I think they planned on taking a break until after the 4th. Good morning, Hondo. I am Manny from El Paso, Texas. Just like to say I appreciate your podcast. Question, during these OTA and mandatory minicamp, I know it's early still and they don't have pads on yet, but what player that has not been mentioned has really brought his game to another level and could make an impact on the Raiders from the bottom of my heart? Thank you. Trey Tucker. You saw in year 1, he struggled with some drop balls. He struggled a little bit on some issues. I mentioned recently, I don't know that I saw him drop one. Now, no pads. So again, I'm only going to evaluate. I know that fans, Manny, desperately want, spellbinding news in the preseason. Well, I learned something from my dad that the spectacular is not always the most important. You got to have foundation. And so I have always resisted the temptation after my third year as a journalist of saying, "Ooh, this guy looks good. That guy." No, you don't know. Period. And anyone that tells you they know is guessing. So I look at the things that you can evaluate. Okay. Hands. Trey Tucker does not look like the same guy. Fast, unbelievably fast. I was standing there with my one of my photographers, Noah Fahey, and Trey gets the ball and makes a cut. He's like, "Wow, is that guy fast?" I said, "He's got afterburners." So yes, Trey Tucker, a guy that really looks the part, and got to prove it with pads on. But even last year, before pads, you saw some issues with drops a little bit, and I think it was more confidence because he's a rookie. So yeah, he looked different to me. Thanks, Manny. Um, Hi Hondo. Who is overseeing Luke Getsy's installation of the new offensive scheme? How big of a gamble is Tom Telesco and AP taking on trusting Getsy with this task? Many camps reports have been hugely positive regarding the offense. Does AP have the offensive know-how to help, or who will the responsibility fall to among the senior coaches? Neil from Northern Ireland. Okay, couple things here, Neil. Number one, um, we wrote. I did not write it. I think Zeke wrote it on Saturday. Go back and look. You can check my social media because I retweeted it. But we wrote an article about Antonio Pierce, the player, is helping Antonio Pierce, the coach's players. He's sitting in, spending a ton of time. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. I think it was the mandatory mini camp recap podcast. So go watch that one. But about him sitting in there, making sure that the installation is not being done too fast and making sure it's being presented. Now, I, I, I take a little bit of an umbrage with your comment when you ask, how good does he know offense? Okay, I've talked about this several times on the podcast, so I don't want to get into it deep, but he's the one that noticed some issues with Tom Brady before they beat what was considered by many the best NFL team of all time in the Super Bowl. He found some things and went and presented it to his defensive staff as a player. He knows offense really well because he was an elite middle linebacker who had to watch, look at adjustments. He knows it extremely well, and he's spending most of his time in the offensive rooms overseeing installation. Plus, he's got Joe Philbin there, Marvin Lewis there. He's got a lot of people. But let's not pretend that Luke Getsy was brought in and he's having to be babysat. He is the offensive coordinator. It's his offense. Now, AP and other guys bring suggestions, and he's like, yeah, I like that. Let's add that. But yeah, he's in those offensive meetings. Next. Sorry about that. Let's get to the next one. Hondo, Father's Day. Oh, happy Father's Day, Hondo, from Fireman Frank. I've been blessed to learn many things from my dad, and I've passed many of those lessons to my children. You've shared wonderful memories about your father. Today, can share another story with us about your dad during your journey as a sports journalist. Can you share a story about the late, great Al Davis and advice he passed along to Mark Davis in operation of the Raiders organization before he passed? And again, this is from Fireman Frank. So yeah, I'll tell you a quick story about my dad. One of them, how he impacted me as a journalist. Years ago, I weighed a significant more amount of weight. I am 250 pounds on the nose as of this morning. and I have lost, I was well over 400 pounds. Now, I suffered a major injury, a shattering of an ankle, took multiple surgeries to put it back together. I went from a wheelchair to a walker to a cane, recovering from surgery. So I was not massively overweight until my injury, and I couldn't exercise, couldn't do anything. But I was massively overweight, and I was covering I was a beat writer covering the Big Ten, and I was covering Michigan State basketball, and they had a player on the team by the name of Derek Nix, very highly touted um, uh, big man. And in front of the media and everything, they put him on a scale to see how much he weighed. And I wrote about his discipline and keeping his weight at a certain level was going to determine a lot. And it was, I thought, a very well written article. In fact, it was well received. Next day, my dad calls. And my dad said, "Can you come by and see me?" And I said, "Sure, Dad." And I always love to go see my dad. And we talked every day. And to the best of my knowledge, it was the only time he ever asked me to come see him after I moved out of the house and didn't tell me what for. So we go there. He takes me in his office. And basically just says to me, "It's very disappointing to see you write about a person's lack of discipline um, with their weight when you're over 400 pounds. I love you. I care about you. But this isn't right. How can you hold this man to that standard and not yourself?" And he hit me like a ton of bricks. And from that day forward, I have endeavored to diet and have my weight very much in control. From my height, 250 is very fine. My doctor has no issues with that. I'd still like to get a little bit lower, and I'm working on it, but I've lost significant amount of weight, nearly 200 pounds, and I impacted my life greatly, very much greatly. As far as an Al Davis story to Mark Davis told me this story one time. In fact, it was after they hired Josh McDaniels, about his dad saying he was always too close to the players. I think that was a warning that Al gave Mark. And I think you have to be careful because this is a business. You can't get mad at players for treating it like a business when owners do. And there are very few people that can be friends with their employees and still be bosses. And I just think that was some good advice from Al Davis to Mark Davis. Um, let's go to the next one. Hey, Hondo, happy Father's Day. I know you referenced many times that we want to get young D-backs reps, but if we don't see what we want, we may bring in a free agent. How do you find that balance of giving young guys enough time to show what they have, but also leaving enough time for someone new to learn the system? Thanks. That's uh, the route that they take. I hope our young guys show out and we don't need to sign anyone, but I'm just curious how long into camp they would wait to make a potential move. Shane from New York. This is a really good question. The best franchises develop, but the best franchise also know when, okay, there's no more development here. We got to get a stopgap free agent till we can draft somebody, or go hire a free agent that's young and on their second contract. Um, I don't think there'll be any free agencies before 4th of July. In fact, I'm not saying there won't be. I'm just saying I would be stunned if any free agents signed before the 4th of July. That being said, maybe closer to camp at any position, not just DBs, maybe closer to camp or into camp after they get a look. And I think you have to, first of all, if you're bringing in a veteran, it's a little bit easier for them to adjust than most people realize. That's just the reality of it. So I don't know that they always need as much time. Plus the Raiders, yeah, I just don't think it's necessary. And so I think that's the balance that you have to have is you really want to give your guys. I mean, I think the Raiders last year may have panicked a little early and brought Marcus in, but I just think that this regime, they're watching a lot of film, they're looking at a lot, they're trusting Patrick Graham, Marvin Lewis. Again, I don't think anything before 4th of July, possibly before training camp, but I would suspect then there's injuries and everything else. So nothing imminent. Next, Kevin G. Hi, Hondo. The number one takeaway from me is Josh McDaniels was incredibly insecure, shockingly so. It sounds like his style was the opposite of AP's be yourself, work hard mantra. Kevin. All right, I'm going to say a couple things because people know that I have great personal respect for Josh McDaniels. Okay? And I do. He totally failed both times as a head coach. So I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the man. I think he was shockingly insecure. I told you guys, I had quotes from people that said he just almost from the day he got hired with the Raiders was afraid he was going to get fired. And some people are made to be head coaches, or that's not true. Some people make themselves into head coaching material. Some people aren't. I think Josh clearly isn't. He is a great officer, terrible commanding officer. And I think you're totally right. And I have tremendous respect for Josh McDaniels as a football offensive mind. I have tremendous respect for him as a husband and a father and a person. I like him. I genuinely do. But he is not head coaching material. The next one. Hondo, joint practices are coming up in training camp. Not heard anything about who the Raiders are joint practicing with. Any ideas? Nick K. Nick, at this point, I don't think there's going to be joint practices. They could be added, but at this point, I don't think that's part of the plan for training camp for the Raiders. I know that I think that hurts. I think when you have two joint practices like the Raiders did last year was too much. I like the idea of one, but I don't, it isn't on the horizon now. So I think I'm very highly skeptical that it would be. But you never know, do you? Next one comes to us from Rhonda L. Rhonda L. Hondo, I'm just wondering about your early impressions of Tom Telesco. Now that he's here, you've gotten to know him. What are your thoughts on him? I'd appreciate it. Okay, so if you remember when Tom Telesco got hired, I was very open that I did not know Tom, but I knew several people that not only knew him, they knew him very well, and people that I trust. Now, I have learned over my life, I have a group of people that once you get in my circle of trust, that's exactly what it means to me. I don't trust very many people, but once I do trust you, your opinion is very valuable. One of my dear friends is Drew and his beautiful wife, Kristen Stanton. Precious people, salt of the earth, just some of the finest human beings to walk the planet. And I adore them both and their children. And Drew and I are very close, and we're kind of cut from the same cloth. We believe the same way in just about everything in our lives, from our faith to everything else. And I have great trust for him. And he does not like Tom Telesco. He loves him, and they're close. And so there's him. Then there's multiple other people who, I trust. I trust Bill Polian, who adores Tom Telesco. Here's a couple of impressions that I have of him. I asked Devontae, I said, you had a good relationship with Ziegler. How's it going building a relationship with Tom Telesco? And he said, everybody's different. Good Acoustic, Green Bay, and Dave Ziegler, and whatever. There's a couple things about Tom Telesco. Number one, 100% genuine. Now, this is after I've gotten to know him. I know his family. I say his family. I mean, I know his wife. He's incredibly genuine. Tom Telesco, if he tells you something, is one of those guys you can bet the baby's milk money. It's just who he is. It's his character. He's not a huge talker. I mean, it is. He is. He's just not that guy. Listen, because he has something to say. He's a terrific listener. In fact, I've noticed that, and I've had players notice it and tell me too. He listens to people. I am impressed at the man, I want to find the right words so bad. I am impressed at his minimization of his ego. I've not seen one demonstration of an ego. Not one. And I had been told that, but we all at some point have an ego about something. And but almost everybody's like, the guy doesn't have an ego. It's all about winning. I'm going to share some things. There are some things about his time in leading the Bolts that I'm very aware of. And my father always used to tell me, don't you ever badmouth a company you work for who pays you on time the agreed upon amount of money that you're owed, and their check doesn't bounce. Don't do it. You may not like your job. If it's an integrity thing, if they're breaking the law, you should have quit. But if they ask you for 8 hours and they're going to pay you $20 an hour and you're done, and they give you a check for $160, you better keep your mouth shut. And I know that Tom Telesco could have thrown the Chargers under the boat multiple times. Just some things that happened there. And he didn't. And that's admirable. And it's impressive. It's admirable and impressive. So I think he's a man of great integrity. He's a man, not of few words, but he doesn't bloviate. He's selfless. He's team. Everyone knows that I said I thought Champ Kelly should have gotten the job. And I said it, and I stand by it. That doesn't mean if you think Champ didn't get a fair shake, that you judge Tom. I judge Tom Telesco and Tom Telesco, and I think he was an exceptional hire. My opinion. This next one I thought was pretty funny. Hondo, what's going on with Byron Young? I understand there are better vets on the roster ahead of him. I just feel he was a wasted high draft pick. I no longer see a path for him to start or even make the roster at this point. So why not deal him while he still has some trade value? I think another season on the practice squad will completely devalue his trade worth. Why are they letting players not on the vine nor trying to get some value for them in the return? I would hate to see him cut in 2025 for nothing in return. I'm not sure another franchise would take a flyer on him. Benito in Staten Island, New York. You are entitled to any opinion that you want, Benito. But I'm going to read this again. I just feel he was a wasted high draft pick. Okay. After 1 year. When there was a bunch of guys ahead of him. I mean, remember, they let Jerry Tillery go. They let another tackle go. They had Jink. They had Butler. They had Tyree. They had Nesta. I'm not saying Nesta and Byron got a lot, but there wasn't a lot of reps to get. This goes back to, and again, I'm not critical of you, Benito, but it goes back to a common mentality. Oh, year one, they suck. They got nothing. You may be right, but if you are, it's a guess. And you're never going to have a good franchise, especially now with the last two drafts where you've had good drafters. Hey, they're not going to get every pick right. But the last two drafts you've had trustable drafters. Trustable drafters. And I got nothing for this. It's like people that say Aiden O'Connell was a bust or Tyree Wilson is a bust. I literally have nothing. These kind of comments, I understand it comes from people, but I know what people on the inside are saying about them. I know what I see with my own eyes. Yeah, nothing. I don't understand you, but I got nothing. All right. The next one comes. This one is fascinating one. So let me just get right to this one. Dear Hondo, I am more excited for the Raiders this year than I've ever been, but I believe it's for different reasons than you might suspect. I am what I call a reasonable fan. I don't have season tickets. I can't afford it since they've moved to Las Vegas, but I'm still a fan. I wear my shirts. I proudly proclaim my love for the Raiders. For the first time in a long time, I have hope that my team is heading in the right direction. I don't have unreasonable expectations that they're going to be a Super Bowl team. There are a lot of young players at key positions, but I at least have the confidence that this team will compete in every game. I at least have the confidence that this coaching staff will have them competitive in every game. I at least feel like my team is no longer broke and unable to afford the players it needs to win, and is also in a winning position. I guess I'm more optimistic, not that they're going to get to a Super Bowl, but we're going and are building a franchise that will finally just win, baby. I love it. I'm not unreasonable. I'm realistic. And if it costs me going to games in Oakland for my team to finally get the resources and everything it needs to win, I would rather win. I saw you recently make a statement about Max Crosby. You said that you believe he would give up any shot at the Hall of Fame or Defensive Player of the Year for a Super Bowl. He's all about winning. I miss the Raiders being in Oakland. I miss being able to afford going to any game I wanted. But if this is what was needed financially to get my team back to winning regularly, to not being an embarrassment and potentially winning Super Bowls, then I would be willing to have helped pack boxes to move them to Las Vegas. To me, win, lose, or draw, I'm a Raider all of my life. And to finally be able to turn on the TV and not think about how are we going to lose, but how will we find a way to win means everything to me. Thank you. I hope this makes sense. It sucks I won't go to the games, but I'll be watching every single one on television, rooting my team on. Because to me, it's just win, baby. Like Max, I'm willing to make personal sacrifices if it's for the betterment of the nation. Thank you. I appreciate you, Carlos Mendoza. There you go, Carlos. It wasn't a question, but I thought it was a heck of an email. Good for you. Happy Father's Day, everybody. I want to just quickly let my children know that I love you and I believe in you. You didn't come with an owner's manual. Didn't come with an owner's manual. And I have not been a perfect father. And that is the hardest thing when you get older. And I'm just talking to my kids now. Y'all are just in a family meeting. You didn't come with an owner's manual. And when you all are parents, you're going to be sitting back like me at an older age, admiring my grandchildren and thinking about mistakes you made and how you would have done things different. And I want to remind you of something I learned a couple months ago. I wish I had known when I was growing up, my parents were growing up. Every time I failed or every time I maybe didn't do something the way you wanted it, whatever, you need to know I never made a decision not out of it of loving you. And on this Father's Day, I want to tell you, Sandra, Sage, Travis, Shane, Noah, Hondo Jr., Dexter. I gotta make sure I got them all. Sage, Noah, Travis, Sandra, Hondo, Dexter, Shane. Yep, I got them all. Sorry. And my granddaughter, Brinley Bear. I want you to know what makes Father's Day great is you guys. And I love you. I'm sorry for every time I failed you, but I love you. And that's from the bottom of my heart. Take from my life what I've done well and what I didn't do well, learn from it, and be a better parent to my grandchildren. But I love you guys. Thank you for being the best kids in the entire world. Love you.